Welcome to another episode of Unsung Heroes. I'm Chris Gordon for DJB Productions. And today we're going even deeper with the life and music of Matthew Bradley. And today I am extremely honored to be joined by Matt's sister, Annie Bradley Ermlick. Thank you so much for joining me today. And there's a lot to unpack here, Annie. And you and I have had some conversations on the phone, and I'm just absolutely blown away that we're going to have this time together. So I want to start at the beginning. And Annie, your theater, you began in theater. That's your thing. So could you talk to me and to us a little about who you are theatrically in
Um,
what you do?
so I'll backtrack. I've been everywhere from opera to plays to musical theater, and I excel at musical theater. And so I did that for many years in New York successfully. Then I got married and didn't do anything with it when my kids were young. And when my daughter was about 10, I went back to it. But it was not a career at that point. And currently, when Matt died, I stopped performing. It was just really, really difficult. And so I took a break from theater because I just felt like maybe I wasn't present enough, or I was so emotional that I might have been robbing the audience of um, a completely invested performance because it's about them, transporting them, taking them on a journey.
Okay.
So I backed away from theater and I went into barbershop. And it was four-part harmony, and I loved it. So I am a soprano, but I sing bass, which really
Wow.
surprised me. So for the past 6 years, I've been doing barbershop in a quartet and then in a chorus. And I just
And that's very interesting to me because I want to talk about that at one point in our discussion about harmony, because that was something that Matt was so in tune with and ahead of his time, especially in the genre, in the rock genre. But I'm gonna go back a little bit. Matt was adopted. Some people don't know this. Matt was adopted. When did he come into your life? You were his sister. When did that happen?
Matt and I were both adopted. We were both adopted at 2 months old. Matt is
Wow.
almost 3 years older than I am. So he was adopted first, and then my parents applied for adopting a second baby, and then almost 3 years later they got me. But I was also 2 months old. So we were adopted from a place called the Cradle in Illinois. And my parents tried for over 10 years to have children, and they couldn't. So yeah, we were both adopted.
So you're both adopted. So you're the same age.
We were both adopted at 2 months, and we're almost 3 years apart.
Okay.
Does that
All
make
right. Yeah.
sense?
No.
One,
Okay.
it's really interesting. We are not biologically related, which is a whole nother layer of interest because we both turned out to be singers and musicians.
Right. Now, my question was your pursuit as a singer. When did that happen for you? When did you get, you're like, I want to sing. I want to do this.
That's
When did
almost
that happen for you?
the perfect question because it's because of my brother. So
Okay.
I was a dancer. I was put into dance at 5, and we had a play coming up in school, and they needed someone to play Mary. And so, because I was the right height, I had dark hair then, they thought, oh, well, we'll have her do it. Can you sing? And I was like, I don't know. So I would sing something, and I could do it. And I was, in first grade, it's not really like critical. It's just pretty basic singing. But I would be at home and I would practice, and my brother would say, you can really sing. And I was like, yeah, right. I can sing this little song from our play. And he's like, no, you can really sing. So then Matt, now remind, he's 9. He was like, sing this note, sing this note, sing this note, sing this phrase, do this, all this different stuff. And my parents started to take notice that this kid can really sing. I was so young. I was 6 years old. So that's how it started.
Okay, so even at that age, with you and Matt having this interplay, and it's interesting you say that, because I always saw that with him too. When I worked with him, he's play this, play
Yeah.
that. He was hearing things. So your interaction with him and your singing at that point, because now let's just put it this way: you've been bitten by the bug, right? Now you're in theater. Now you're doing it.
I was like pretty much a shy kid. I didn't talk a lot, and my brother talked for me, which was great. So it was a big thing for me to, take the leap and even do that show. But it was really fun for me. All the time with Matt was fun, but sharing that singing and the music together was always fun. He made it like a little game, and so I think it really helped me sort of find my own wings, or try to come out of my shell a little bit. So it helped me just personally become more.
So but you were singing before Matt was, because Matt was a guitar player.
I was a singer. So I was 6. They don't let you take lessons till you're 12. And so I still took dance, and I took the violin, and when Matt took played saxophone. And then Matt was not a singer. He didn't come into singing until later, but he did fool around. Like when I started taking lessons, I would come home and I'd practice, and he would just go off and imitate everything I was doing and ask me, why are you doing that? What's the point of that? Like, can I come to your lesson and listen? He was always interested in anything I did, but especially anything music.
Okay.
So I was the singer. He used to say, oh, you're the professional singer. I'm not really a singer. Even to this, like if you were alive now, he would say that. But he turned into a phenomenal singer, as you know. So yeah, I don't know.
Well, it seems to me that, and you were speaking earlier about the barbershop thing and the harmony. I remember driving across the country with him, and he would, sit there and say, sing the third,
Mm-hmm.
sing the fifth, now sing the flat seventh. He was so intervallically aware. And he had spoken to me about the fact that, his sister Annie was a singer, and that was a big influence on him. So was there a time in your younger years, because I want to get back to his younger years, you growing up together, you're these 2 kids hanging out, and obviously the 2 of you, which is fascinating to me. This is really fascinating stuff. You're both adopted, and these 2 musical people are put together.
We were both athletic. We were both musical. We ended up both being singers. We were both really lanky kids. We had so much in common. It was just unbelievable. But I was pretty much his sidekick. Like, right, anything that Matt did, he would drag me along. Unless later, when it was band related, he didn't want me in that scene. He didn't
Why
want me
is that?
around.
Why is that?
So protective of me. He didn't want my ears to be damaged for my singing career. He didn't want me to be in the band life at all. He really didn't want me around guys. He was a super protective brother. He used to say, "Oh, go, guys only want one thing. You don't need to have anything to do with them. Just stay away from them." But anything he did, he dragged me along. Like, I remember when I was in 2nd grade, and there was a skateboard contest on one of those half pipe, whatever. And you needed 2 people to enter. And so he didn't know anyone that was up to his skill level. So apparently only one person had to skate. So what did Matt do? He put a bowl on my head and cut my hair in a bowl haircut, called me Andy, and brought me down to the skating rink,
Are you kidding me?
put a brace on my knee, and act like I was injured. And he did the whole thing and won.
What year was this?
I was in second grade.
Oh my God.
9, 10, 11. He was 11. Matt was
Inventive. He was inventive is what he was.
I was so he was just, I've heard like everyone talks about him, how he was so intense and like super dedicated to whatever he did. And that was from day one.
Okay.
Like, for example, if I at 9 years old, I got a piano. I didn't have to play the piano. I went to lessons and learned how to do scales and all that. And Matt would come in and be like, did you practice? You need to practice. I want to hear a smoother scale, whatever. He didn't play the piano. And then I would go in the other room and he'd come back and he was writing a song on the piano.
On the piano.
I'd get a pogo stick and I would practice that thing all the time, day and night, till I could do, I can do 30 now, or a hula hoop or whatever it was. And Matt would just get on it and he'd just immediately be able to do it. And I would get frustrated and he'd say, no, you keep at it. Just keep working at it. But he was good at everything.
That's the interesting thing about that. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's an interesting thing about Matt was that, to put it bluntly, if Matt wanted to be an astronaut, he could have been. And I think a lot of that had to do with just his focus, but I think he was just in tune. And he was in tune. So you brought Matt to your vocal teacher. Okay, so Matt's a guitar player.
And he was put into some lessons. And later on, when he was with Nadine, they ended up getting my exact teacher.
Okay.
Come and sit in on some lessons.
Okay.
And just listen. And then sometimes when you're learning a new technique, it gets a little confusing. And I'd be at home and I'd be practicing what they did and trying to think, like, we didn't record stuff back then. Like, am I doing that right? And I would be able to go to my brother and say, I'm a little bit confused about this. Was I supposed to, whatever it was? And he'd be like, oh, no. You need to do this. And he would explain it to me. Or in a song, I studied classical music, and that was not his thing, but he always believed, fundamental, learn the technique first, and you can branch off. Like dancers, they learn ballet, and then they could do hip hop or jazz or tap. He was the same way about guitar, like teaching his students, you have to have the technique down. Then you can go and imitate an artist or play rock or do whatever you want. But he was a stickler for that. I lost my train of thought.
No, it's all good.
So he would help me. He would be like, no. Lelia said that you have to do this.
But this was an organic thing. This isn't so.
Organic.
Even with your singing, and he's coming to you and he's saying these things to you, this is something that was inside of him.
Oh,
like
definitely.
He knew.
Definitely.
Okay. So even though you were studying, you're studying. You're in the academic field of studying. Is it safe to say that Matt was hearing something even beyond that at that point, even then?
Absolutely. In fact, when we were really young, I would say it was right after we figured out that I could sort of sing. We would take trips everywhere. So my dad and my parents belonged to the yacht club, country club, all that. My dad owned his own plane. And so he would take us all over the country in his plane.
Wow.
Plane. My brother hated to fly. I loved it. But when we would fly or drive somewhere even, we would take long trips. And my brother got pretty antsy, especially when we were in the plane. So he'd like to sing songs like, do you remember the song Bum Bum Bumblebee Tuna? So he would sing that and he'd be like, sing along with me. And so he'd be singing and then he's like, no, I need you to go a third above me. And then he would show me what the third is, just like you kind of said. And we would do it. And he'd want to keep on working up the scale, and not only working up the scale, getting louder and louder and louder till my father was ready to go crazy. But he was already at that age going, let's sing it like this. And he was literally singing the different intervals and harmonizing at that age.
And that's what's fascinating to me is that
He's like,
these are,
I mean,
but these are two people came together. You're
yeah,
both adopted.
yeah.
You're brought into this family. And I knew your mother. I did not know your father.
My dad, great.
Yeah, he had a plane. How cool is that?
So
You know.
if I can go on a different tangent, my dad spent a third of his childhood sick and in bed. He had horrible asthma. And fortunately, his parents were wealthy enough that he had like the first TV and he had air conditioning and all of these great medicines and stuff to keep him alive so that he could like participate in school, still get through school. And he went to Case and graduated top of his class and got his master's. But he spent his childhood locked in his room, like so sick, and he read all the time. He was an avid reader. So he would go on trips, like reading about different places. But the poor kid was like confined to this sickly lifestyle. So when he got older and he married my mom, she was really into health food. Seriously, like he later bought her a health food store. She was way ahead of her time. She was a scientist, really into health food store. My dad bought her a health food store called the Vitamin C, but spelled SEA because it was at the beach. And she basically got him super healthy, where he, instead of spending a third of the year in the hospital or even going once a year, he wasn't going but every 5 years.
Okay.
So not being able to have children because of the medicine, XYZ. When he got us, his whole thing was, you need to live. And you need to live, of course, responsibly, but you need to live your life. You need to seize the day. You have to break barriers. You have to live outside of the box. You need to expand your horizons. You can't just, if someone tells you no, you have to hear a million no's before you hear one yes. And that was instilled to us from day one. If something was getting us down, like I remember Matt was down about something, my dad said, let's get in the plane. We're going to go to Gettysburg and just learn about history. My father was pivotal in making sure that the two of us had we were no limit thinkers. We were people that were not afraid to try things, that we were not held, even though we were in like kind of a debutante type lifestyle, we were not held to the same standard. Like just because Betsy went to Yale and did this and blah, 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 that's good for Betsy. What's your dream? How do we make that happen? And so, like, even with parents, when they discipline you, my brother would do all kinds of things that were naughty. Like he would steal the car when he was 14 just because he wanted to go somewhere and didn't want to like ask for a ride or take his bike or whatever. He just did naughty things. And my parents would try to be mad at him. And my father would like try to act Matthew Bennett Bradley and put on his whole like, I'm angry right now. And it was all he could do to not laugh. And he had like an underbite, so you could tell when he's starting to laugh. And like he would leave the room, and my mom was very stoic personality. He would leave the room, and you could hear them chuckling in the other room. Ellie, I tried so hard to tell him he's not allowed to do that. But how can you punish a kid for thinking like that? So I think that, you know, this nature versus nurture thing with adopted versus like the family you're raised with versus your genes.
Right.
I think about that all the time, especially because Matt's father apparently was a professional baseball player.
Okay.
But which gave him like the physical body to be bionic. But
And who and do you know that name? Do you know who that was?
We were told that, but then the biological mother was like, shh, don't ever say that. So
okay.
His name is Viv Falk. He played for Chicago. He was a professional ball player with a huge generation, like a huge age difference between the two of them. And his son, which escapes me right now, was a famous actor. I'll have to think of his name. And when I looked at the pictures and stuff, they look similar. So,
Right.
But back to my dad. Like my parents they really fostered us pushing boundaries and chasing our dreams and not being like grounded, just always taking flight.
And that's one of the things I always got from Matt was that he was boundless. So as you're growing up with him, and you guys grew up, and correct me if I'm wrong, this was Jersey based, right?
So
Where
yeah,
did you grow up? Where did you and Matt grow up together?
we first lived in Abington, Pennsylvania. Then we moved to Jenkintown, and my father started a company with Ron Ciacchetti, Ralph Ciacchetti. I don't know if you know him, and Ron. They were all. I mean, started with Ralph and Ron. The Ciacchettis, we were great friends.
Right.
And my dad's asthma started to get, and we always spent the summers at Long Beach Island, at the beach.
Okay. That's the Jersey thing.
Right.
Okay.
So then my dad noticed he was feeling much better at the beach. And so we had a really pretty beachfront property, and they decided to remodel it. And I don't even remember how old I was, but at some point we decided to move down there full time. And that's when my dad got the plane. So he could fly to work and then fly home. I'm
interjecting here because I have to know. I love planes. Where was he putting this plane? In LBI?
It's Cessna. It was over in Manahawkin.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Right. Because I lived in Jersey for years, and I had a lot of friends who had Cessnas. So that okay. Good. Now I have a visual.
That was
okay.
Not a passenger, but a high wing, not a low wing, so he could see everything. And he was crazy. He'd be like, "You want to fly? Go ahead," and he'd just let me fly. I didn't know what I was doing.
Wow.
See, so yeah. So then we lived in New Jersey for a couple years, and my father was like, "You're not going to get the education you need here. You're not going to be able to become like follow your talents and all of that here." So we moved to Swarthmore, Pennsylvania, and so we still kept the beach house for a while, and my mom's vitamin C, and then after a while they let the beach property go, and then a little after my dad was like the Commodore, they let the vitamin C go.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, so now you're in Swarthmore.
Yeah.
You and Matt growing up. Where did you experience Matt's getting into the rock scene in Delaware County? Like,
so, it was really young. Like my brother had broken his leg, and it was the first time he broke his leg. He broke both legs. First time he broke it. He was, I think I even sent you a picture of him. I think he was like 9 or 10, something like that. And my dad had a guitar. My dad always played the guitar and sang very poorly, but he did. So we were around.
Okay.
And Dad Bill Lund, a family friend, came to the house, and he was a really proficient guitarist, but he played country music. So my brother didn't have anything to do besides Pac-Man and like reading books and doing Mad Libs, which we did all the time, and trying to fiddle around on this guitar. So that summer he became pretty good on the guitar, and basically Bill would show him a few things, and my dad would be like, "You want to take lessons?" And he's like, no, I can't take lessons yet. I have to know how the instrument works. And he's like, "Well, that's what you take lessons for." He's like, "No, I have to know the inside out of the instrument. I have to know how to take it apart. I have to know how to put it back together. I have to figure out on my own where all the chords are, where everything is, and then I'll be ready for lessons. Otherwise, I'm wasting your money."
So he ended up studying with Bob Islanian.
Yeah.
Who he recommended me to, and Bob Islanian and I had a great relationship for years. So that's an interesting point you bring up, and that speaks to his mechanical level of,
oh my gosh,
I want to know why this works. Like, that's the thing about Matt that's really fascinating, is that he was always about, why is this working this way?
It was fascinating, but being his sister, it was annoying, because I remember.
In what way? Like how?
Stereo. I go to school, I come home, all the parts are apart. It's all over a brand new 10-speed bike. accidentally all apart.
It's completely destroyed. Well,
And
not destroyed. It's
the
just in a
stereo, I
different
was
state, right?
right, the stereo, I was really young, and he couldn't figure out how to put it back together. So my dad, I was so upset because I was like, I'm so bad with. Maybe I was 8, 7, 8, my first stereo, and so that makes Matt 10, 11, and he
Okay.
pulled it all apart. And so the speakers, everything, like every little part of it was everywhere. And I was really upset. And my dad said, "We cannot squelch his creativity. I will go buy you another one." No, what is
Wow.
that? My mother was like, "Bennett, that costs a lot of money, blah, 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 blah." And my father always had a way with my mom because my mom and my brother were really, really close. Like she tried to put on a front, but like he could get away with anything.
So as he got into the scene, and obviously there's this history here where you were singing. When you got into theater, were you into theater at that age? Was
I,
were are
I did a role at 6, and then my dad was in a play, and I got the first taste of a play, not a musical, when I was 9. And then from there on, I just did a few little shows. Um, and his music career hadn't taken off. He was still exploring different instruments then.
right?
When we lived in New Jersey, he set up a band in the garage. And so it wasn't a good band, but it was a band. And so they would lift the garage doors in the summer, and we lived right on the beach. So everyone would come up the dunes to the beach, and people would congregate and just listen to this band. So from the very early ages, like right after he learned the guitar, like around 10-ish that summer,
Hmm.
the very next summer, he already had a band. It was like a garage band. It wasn't like,
Right. It's a garage situation. But as he grew older and got into the scene, was he still coming to you with his ideas as he was growing as a musician? Because his growth was exponential, from even my younger years of hearing him and listening to his demos. And it just goes back to what you were talking earlier about taking something apart,
yeah,
taking a 10-speed bike apart and going, oh, this is how this works. Okay. Well, he was doing that to 4-track machines. He was doing that to drum machines. He was taking them apart and going, I can make these better. So you grew up with this guy that, and I don't think this is something that he would have verbalized. I don't think in a million years he would have verbalized this, but you experienced this. This is a guy who's like, oh, a 10 speed does this. I can make it a 20 speed. So that's my question is, did you grow up in that environment where everything was, this is fine, but it can be better?
I mean, I think he was serious that way about a lot of things, but there was a lot of play. We would skimboard together. We would surf together. We played tag in my house, which was amazing because we had a spiral staircase on one side and a regular staircase on the other. And my brother could slide all the way down the spiral stair, like banister, or jump the full entire length of the stairs, jump over balconies. We did all kinds of things together. He would play hopscotch with me. So it wasn't like always a serious thing. I mean, as we got older, our routine was pretty much I'd go to school, I'd come home, I'd either go to lacrosse or I'd go to dance or voice. We'd have dinner as a family every night. And then, Matt, he doesn't sleep. So he would always like say, have you done your homework? So I've done my homework. And then we would kind of talk shop about different things. He had me at one point like tried to do vocals on something he was doing, and he said, yeah, I just don't want you to sing this kind of music. So I don't know. We collaborated as far as like vocal technique, but I couldn't understand his world. And like when we played out, he didn't want me to go. But when I was in a show, he was at every show. It was just very bizarre. He really sheltered me and protected me.
So I want to talk about that if you're okay with it. I want to talk about that. You know, working with him in the studio and knowing how exacting he was. So when you say he didn't want you to play, he didn't want you to sing on a particular piece, what did you why? Like what's the reason for that?
I think because he knew that I was a more legit singer, right? At that time, I did musicals, but I was learning classical music, and I was groomed to go to opera. I went to Eastman for opera.
Okay. Okay.
And I was in the Philadelphia Opera. I got accepted in a company when I was 14. And so,
Wow.
yeah, I sang in the Pavarotti Junior contest and I won. So I was coached by Pavarotti. Just like things that we were just yin and yang in the music world, like we were just totally different. And I never asked him, but what I got from that was that he saw my trajectory. He saw my course. And my course was not in band. It was in legit, like, classical singing, more mainstream stuff. I remember my background too, like with country club people. Country club people have rock musician sons. It was kind of a weird thing. And
Well, I find this fascinating.
buff for me from that. And he knew that I was supposed to go over here and he was supposed to go there. Same thing with me. Like, I was in awe of Matt. Like, he was my big brother. He was my hero. He could do no wrong. And what he could do on instruments, I saw him play countless instruments. I saw him play the sax, the trombone. I played flute. I was terrible at it, and he perfected it. I was like, my mom bought it. He's like, oh, I'll play it. He eventually, like, he learned the bass guitar. He played like Van Halen on the guitar.
On the guitar, yeah.
I saw him, like, fool around with singing. He could write stuff. He ended up playing the bass guitar. Then he taught himself the drums. He was a genius, an absolute genius. And stuff that I had to work so hard at, like over and over and over, basic things, he would get like that. Not that he was hard. He was very disciplined.
But like, was that always even as you explain this kind of, you're an artist and you're doing your thing, and you have your big brother here walks in, he's like, oh, it goes like this. Was your relationship always this, like, oh, he's doing his thing? I mean, because I always understood that, from what I remember, was that you were a confidant. You were someone that he would go to. Hey, what do you think of this? I'm doing this. Was there ever a point in your life where you're like, you know what? I just want to, like, really? Are you kidding me? Like, was there ever an argument between the two of you where you were just like, Matt, come on, man, stop being what you're, really? You're going to come in with a flute and play the part?
Oh, he, like, annoyed?
Yeah, like I'm saying, like a brother and sister relationship that we can all understand. That, like,
Yeah, he pissed me off. Like, seriously, he pissed me off. But then on the other side, he'd be like, "You're the artist in this family. You are professional. You're amazing. You're gonna go all the way, kid. You've got it all. You can sing, you can dance, you can act. You're beautiful. You've got it all. You are the artist. I'm just a guy that's playing music." He just was so humble and so uplifting for me that, I could have, like, my confidence could have gone down because he can just do anything all the time, right? But he worked at it. A lot of the times when I was asleep, he worked at it. But he was just gifted in a different way, and he never made me feel lesser than.
Right, and that's an interesting topic I wanted to talk about, because
he just built me up all the time.
And going back to what you had said earlier about, and this is something that's fascinating to me, because this is something that I never knew, even in my years of knowing him, was that there was a steadfast, like, you're doing legitimate music.
Yeah.
And that he didn't put himself in that. He didn't put himself in that category. And going back to what you were saying earlier about how he was protecting you, don't come out, don't come out to my shows. You know, this is a different world. You're doing your thing, and I find that fascinating because I think that's.
I think a lot of big brothers do that, though, right? Like,
well, yeah, no, I have a younger sister, and I certainly don't invite her to my shows.
Yeah, he didn't want me there. I was like, don't you want me to hear you? He goes, yeah, I do. It's just not the environment for you. But you have to remember, like, there's a 3-year age difference. So when he was 17, I'm just entering high school.
Okay.
So at that time, a 3-year age difference is kind of big. When we got older, it was really nothing. But we went in different directions. I went to Eastman. So Matt's interesting. He didn't finish high school. He was really bored in school. I think that he would have, now they have all kinds of programs, gifted and honors and all of that stuff. I took AP classes, but they didn't really have the programs they have now where they identify you really young. And so Matt kept saying, I'm so bored. It's so boring. I can do my schoolwork in like 3 hours. And he would have been an ideal homeschool kid. And so I remember him finishing 9th grade and going into 10th grade and him saying, Dad, you're just wasting my time. I could literally be learning so much in music right now. You're just wasting my time. And my father was like, again, he was not the upper echelon guy that was like, I'm sorry, son, you're going to follow this course and go to this college and then graduate and become a doctor, which coincidentally, every other generation in my family is a doctor. And he was supposed to be. So, he didn't do that. He said to my brother, all right, you go through 10th grade, right? And so if you can pass the GED, you can graduate high school. And my brother was like, really? He's like, yeah. So 10th grade, you figure you finish with chemistry in 10th grade, maybe?
Right.
He was like, at the end of the year, he's like, hey, remember what you said about the GED thing? And he's like, yeah. He goes, well, I took it. I passed it.
And he was off and running at that point.
He went to college, went to University of Michigan and hated it, but he went.
And that's where he,
But we went in different directions is what, I guess, where the tangent what I went off on. We just, I went to college and then he went to California and then he came back and then he went back to California. I did New York and all that. And then I got married. Then I left New York, started a family young before he did. And so artistically, we were in 2 different worlds, 2 different directions as well.
But it continued. The artistry continued. You continued on your path, and then he refound his artistry in what he was doing as well.
Yeah.
So he comes back to California, and there's a lot of great footage that we're going to include in this episode of people who received his gift of life, which you facilitated, and that's going to be included in this episode. I want to talk about your relationship with him as moving forward. It's interesting with siblings. Some siblings go off and do their thing, and they reconnect once a year, twice a year. Hey, Merry Christmas. That wasn't the case with you and Matt. And Matt always remained very close.
When my dad died, we started talking every single day. Here in Virginia and he's in California. I think our relationship got even stronger after my father died. Funny story, when my dad died, Matt wanted to sing at his funeral with me. And so I was like, what do we do? He's like, well, we'll sing Bum Bum Bumblebee Tuna, of course.
Which was the Plains song, right?
Yeah, And then like Tiny Bubbles and songs that my dad used to sing. We didn't practice or anything. And so I think it was Devin, Matt's daughter, was like, how is she going to do that? And my brother said, she is a professional. She'll be fine. But the truth of the matter is I was not. And I'd never, like Matt's voice had grown immensely, right?
Yeah.
Besides singing like jingles and sending them back and forth and stuff, I had never really sung with Matt when his voice had evolved live. So we get to the funeral and he starts playing and I start singing and then I cannot sing. The air's dry and I am just bawling. And my brother made it all the way through. He carried me all the way through it. But yeah, so since my dad died, we started talking every single day and for hours, not just like, hey, how you doing? Blah, 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 blah. Like hours and hours, like we used to do as kids, just hours and hours and hours of talking.
And that was an everyday thing.
Yeah.
And you know, so it was a reconnection. And was there any point during that time where, you know, there was discussions of like, hey, let's do a song together. You know, could we do something together? You know, with
I mean, like I said, we used to sing jingles and send them back and forth. But I don't know. I don't have great, like I know Audacity and stuff, but I'm not like really technical savvy. I did not get that from him, nothing rubbed off. And so I would be pretty limited with that. Like I know Matt recorded and sent stuff to the Rainbow Mandrells in England, to Pete Richardson and stuff, but
yeah,
capability. I did record with him. I don't even remember when it was. I think it was when he went to California and then came back from California. I wanted to make a recording of like all the songs that I did in New York and in different shows and stuff. And he made that and produced it and stuff.
Oh, wow.
He sang a little bit of the backups on that. So I guess we collaborated on that. But I don't know. It's kind of weird that we were both singers and we just didn't like.
Yeah, it's actually pretty crazy. So I have a couple of different questions.
Okay.
Share with us a couple of different stories with Matt. One when you're younger, growing up, and one later. Like share what it was like to grow up with Matt. What was a life in the day?
It was always fun. It was always fun. It was just absolutely never boring. So like if we were at the beach, we would get up really early. We had a buddy system at the beach. My father made sure we did swim team and we knew how to swim because we lived on the ocean. The bay was like just straight across a couple of blocks. It was not a wide island. It was long, 18 miles long.
Okay.
And so we had a buddy system. So Matt liked to get up early in the morning and go surfing or go swimming or do whatever. And so he'd always drag me with him. And I'd be half asleep, like sitting on the beach. And then after, oh God, I was so young. I want to say I was only like seven or so. And at the start of maybe when I was like 6, I think we were allowed to do that. And he did it earlier with my dad. But my dad, you know, he worked. He got tired of doing it. So then my brother would start dragging me. And like 6 or 7 years old, he'd be like, you have a choice. You can sit on the beach and just hang out here, or you can come in the ocean with me and learn how to surf or boogie board or whatever.
Right.
So we'd always do that. And then we'd come up to the house and my mom would always have something to eat. And then if it was in the summer, we'd go straight to the yacht club. We'd go like, it sounds like a privileged life, but we were always active. We'd either have swim team or we'd go sailing or we'd go water skiing. And we were allowed to do all of that. It didn't even matter if we weren't of age to drive the boat. My dad let us do it.
Right.
We understood what was safe, what wasn't safe.
Well, your dad owned a plane. I mean, come on.
And he wasn't a daredevil.
I'm sorry. That's just so badass. It's like, hey, get in the plane. We're going.
We always ate dinner together. And Matt and I like to sit up on the roof of our garage. He found a way to like climb up, and then I couldn't do it. So and like, rock climbing, how
Yep.
you rocks. He literally in the side of my parents' house put little shelves where my feet could reach so that I could climb up the side of the house to the top of the garage. It was a
Exactly.
garage. And we would sit up there with lawn chairs and just look at the stars and talk about just anything. So that was like my life with Matt. If my parents went out, we didn't have babysitters. My brother watched me, and we basically just did everything in the house you weren't supposed to do. Like, we had beams in our house. He would ring a swing. Or, like I said before, we'd jump over the balcony. Well, I wouldn't do it. He would do it. It was just always busy.
And,
Oh,
and that was always reflected in his music. That's the thing that fascinated me about his music, was that it was limitless. There was so much happening.
yeah.
And after what you just described of what it was like to grow up with him,
He was so
with
great.
like, hey, you're going to get on the roof. I'll make it happen.
So great.
We need a swing in the living room. I'm going to make that happen too.
And he did that with his children. Like, he took up gymnastics at 40 because his daughter was in it, and he got great. He did a makeshift pommel horse, and then he put
Yeah.
in his garage, and he would hang from the rings, and he would have Jackson come in on his skateboard, and he'd grab him and swing him. He always had something to do. But there's another side of Matt that I think, it's not like that he was like always push and go. He had a very calm, gentle, serene side to him. I remember he had this like zebra blanket that he was really into, and he would like sleep in the bathtub and sleep in all different weird places, and just like he liked to just have chill times too. He was just I don't know, he was just not normal, but he was extraordinary, not bizarre. But he had a lot of calm to him as well. So he would go, 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 and probably wear himself out. But there was a lot of calm, like serene time with him too. I watched the other interviews and stuff, and it is true that he was extremely busy in his mind. He was constantly thinking of something and concocting things and trying to find out the why for everything. But when he was with you, he was extremely present. There was
That's
no
very true. Yeah.
that mattered. You felt like everything you said, everything you did, he was hanging on to all of it. And he had a lot of calm in his life too. So I just didn't want to give the impression that he was like, whoa, bouncing off the wall.
No, he was very intense when he was with you. And,
Yeah.
another thing I want to speak about that's intense here as we talk is, you were the proponent in continuing his life as an organ donor. And there was a gentleman that received his heart. It is very intense and, very poetic. And the way I look at it is that
Yeah.
this gentleman who received his heart climbed Kilimanjaro. And we're going to have video. We're going to show video in this episode of the gentleman that received Matt's heart, and your mom and yourself had the unbelievable privilege of being able to hear Matt's heart continue to beat in somebody else's body. So I want to talk a little bit about
a lot.
you were you spearheaded that.
So he when the accident happened, when he shot himself, we didn't know where he was, and so I had to call 9 hospitals to find him. But I didn't know you were looking for John Doe.
Mm-hmm.
So after I got through all 9 of them, the lady told me that you need to be asking for John Doe, not Matthew Bradley. So I went all the way back, and he was at LAX.
Okay.
And I said, I described my brother. I said, I need to talk to my doctor right now. And most ERs don't put you through, especially because he was still considered married at the time. I'm not his next of kin. But the doctor got on the phone right away. And I said, what happened? And he said, he's brain dead. But in California, we need to have 2 rulings of brain death.
Mm-hmm.
And we only have 1. And I said, okay. He said his heart stopped. We restarted it. I said, okay, well, I want to have organ donation. Matt and I never talked about it, but I wasn't a registered organ donor. But honestly, I looked at it. I really feel like just God directed me to do that. I don't know what you believe in, but I do. It came out of nowhere. It would be a conversation that people would normally have, and we never had it because what are the odds? And I looked at it because he took such stellar care of his body.
Yes, he did.
He was just in the best shape, and he had such a zest for life. And if he, we hadn't gotten the second brain death ruling, but we're adopted. And so being adopted is like somebody can't take care of you, but they gave you life. They chose life for you. And
Right.
they paid it forward to another family that couldn't have children.
Right.
So I looked at it like my brother would want this because he's adopted. And his biological mother gave him life for my parents to have a family. It's the same thing in the sense.
Right.
You might be struck down for saying that by people seeing this, but it just came out of nowhere. And so I said, if his heart stops again, restart it. If it stops the third time, let him go. But I want organ donation. I said, I'm not the legal person to sign the papers, but I will make sure she signs them. And so then I got on a plane and I got there 5 minutes before the second brain death ruling, which I did before. But, they ask you all kinds of questions like what you want to donate. Do you want to donate his eyes? I said, absolutely not. I can't have his eyes and someone else, but I'll donate the cornea. And I didn't realize what all went in it, like tricking his body to see that he's alive, where they swell up his organs and then they have to cross-check and do all this testing while they're trying to find a recipient. There's just so much that goes into it. Even from David's side, I heard his story, the heart recipient, what he had to go through and what the doctors go through and how precisely like orchestrated the entire thing is so that, they bridge these lives seamlessly. And
right.
It's incredible. It's like absolutely incredible.
And I think that's what it comes down to is that, Matt lives on. He lives on in people. He lives on in all of us, not only physically. He lives on spiritually and his influence.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons that I've always done this is because he was one of the biggest mentors in my life.
Me too.
And I'm fascinated and so enjoy the time that we've been able to talk together about, it's interesting to talk to you about, his origins in art and his sense of adventure.
He was so adventuresome.
Which I knew as well. But I mean, obviously not on the level that you knew. But it's so amazing to hear these great stories because when you tell me the story about how he built a walkway to this roof,
yeah,
where you two could look at the stars, that's very poetic to me because that really sums up Matt to me in so many ways. And he did that through his art. He did that through everything he did. Everything was, dude, I'm going to use his terminology here. Dude, just climb the stairs. Climb the stairs. Come on.
He didn't do that with me, which is so funny. Like
But he did because he built you the stairs.
No, yeah, but he wouldn't be like, I don't know. I think he just was different with me.
Well, no, because I now after you and I have spoken, I think because he looked at you as an inspiration. We were students of his. Myself, we were students. He was like, get it together. But I think he looked at you as an inspiration, as someone, and you were seen in the very beginning of our interview tonight. You talked about this barbershop thing.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, I drove across the country with him and I in a car, and he would sit there and say, "Sing the third, sing
Yeah.
the fifth."
I'm sure he'd get a kick out of it, out of
But
me.
he got that from you,
And
and I think that was part of his magic and part of his, his understanding. It came from you, Annie. And that's the beautiful thing about having these two people who were put into a life together that were equally inspiring, which
I
to me is the whole theme to this.
inspired him, but I think, I mean, I think he just would have been that way regardless. I really do. I really just do. I feel,
Okay.
I mean, he said stuff like that, like, you're the singer and blah, blah, blah. And I would take Alexander technique and he'd be like, why are you doing that? What's the point of that? And just like nitpick every little thing. But I think he was a student of everything. I really do. Like, one of my favorite things we always used to do is his birthday's Halloween. And so down at the beach, I told you we had free reign. It wasn't back then like kids would get like taken and stuff like that. And we would go out. And when I did learn to skateboard, I was terrible at it. But we would go out on our skateboards with pillowcases. And he would literally, sometimes he'd pull me on a rope and I would hold the rope. But we would go all around the beach to the houses. Now in the winter, not, it's not a lot of people, not a lot of long-term residents. And seasonal, it's a
Right.
seasonal
Yeah. LBI.
around
Seasonal.
weather.
Yep.
So I'm speaking specifically of that. But we would skateboard, come back, dump our stuff, and my mom would be like, "Don't you dare eat all that candy." Blah 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 blah. My brother and I routinely every time until he moved out of the house, we would make a paper fort out of newspapers. And the forts that kid could build were unbelievable. And it couldn't just be a regular fort. It had to like take up all this thing. And we would stuff our faces. First we got birthday cake, and then we would stuff our faces with candy. Again, we were both real lanky kids, so that wasn't an issue. But we would always like keep our candy out, and then Matt would say, "Okay, let's go take a walk." And we would go take a walk. We'd say it real loud. And we'd come back and our parents were in there in our loot, pulling through the heat bars and doing all that stuff. It was like this little game we played every time. I think he just really had a zest for life. He just really made every minute count, and he found the fun in everything. We were so silly. We had so many silly times.
Yeah.
Was such a good playmate for me. So I don't know about the inspiring or any of that. I mean, I definitely think a lot of it came from my father.
Yeah.
The morals and like all the etiquette and stuff certainly came from my mother. But my father was a dreamer, and he made sure that we knew that our dreams could come true.
Well,
Which
and
is
he did.
what parent does that? They usually say, maybe you shouldn't go into music. You should have something to fall back on. It's not very realistic.
Yeah. Well,
Bill.
there was a lot of talent there. I mean, let's face it. There's talent there, both of you. And
Well, we were also lucky, right? My father and mother could afford all the lessons, all the equipment, anything we wanted, anything we needed. And
but they also afforded the most important thing, which was, opening the door and saying it's okay, and it's okay. Do you?
yeah,
You
the
know,
spirit of acceptance and like of just, yeah, you do you.
you do you.
Yeah, make no excuses, no holds barred. You just do you.
And I think that's a great way to sum this up. And that was something that Matt believed in. And it's all about doing you. And Annie, I can't thank you enough for your time and sharing this insight into Matt's life.
Well, I appreciate you doing this, Chris, because I actually learned a lot about Matt, especially like the timeline of the bands. Like I remembered Mask and Syntax, whatever it was.
Okay.
He'd strike me dead right now. And I remember like I don't even remember what the little first garage band was and stuff. and people just coming in and out of my house all the time, and he'd be like, "Oh, you got to meet my sister Annie. Annie, sing this, sing this." No, no, sing this. But it was like a revolving door. But
Right.
I chronologically put together like who was playing with whom when.
Right.
Did a stellar job at that.
Yeah.
Or even some of the things of like the footprint that my brother left on people, on their hearts, in their musical lives. It just, to me, like that's like the organ donation thing, right? It's like a part of my brother does live on, and he's left something like a legacy that people can continue to pass on.
You know, it's interesting you say that because absolutely, you know, especially with the organ donation, but and even beyond that, you know, his influence is so intense that, you know, as an artist, you know, as someone that continues to teach like he did, I still teach with his philosophy, and it's immortal. That's his immortality, not just what he's done, you know, and that's important. You know, the organ donation, all these people,
That's like
but
how,
also his philosophy on
right,
life.
right.
You know, that's important.
That was just the ending, right? The beginning
Yeah.
was somebody else, but the ending. But like what he did in his short 48 years is astounding to me. What he could have done had the situation been different, and who knows? But
Who knows? And you know, absolutely, and I agree. I celebrate what he has left, and there's not a day go by. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't celebrate it, and I think we all need to continue to celebrate it.
well,
And,
because like you know, when he first died, I was lucky he did the bridging live, and you know, people were great about posting on remembering Matthew Bradley. But then as time goes by, you know, it could become less and less. But people
no,
still are.
no, my belief is going to be more and more. I think it's going to grow, and I think that there are young musicians coming out now that are hearing his music. I've had students come to me after I've, you know, presented his music to them. It comes back and it grows from there. So no.
That's good. That's. I mean, I always thought he'd be more famous than he was. I mean, not that that's important. It's just that to have more people really hear.
Well, you know, look at it this way. Vivaldi's works were not known for hundreds of years after his passing.
Well, I'd like
And
to be around if he gets really big.
no, and in Matt's case, look, it's not gonna be that long. You know,
Well,
people are rediscovering Matt's music. They're rediscovering his production techniques. They're rediscovering him, and you know, if nothing else, they're rediscovering his passion and his desire for excellence. Like, you know, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it all the way. And you know,
I just feel really, really fortunate that he was my brother. I feel so.
oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's fantastic. And again, I can't thank you enough for your time and taking this time to talk about Matthew. And
thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
like I said, he was a mentor and continues to be a teacher. And I've had the great pleasure of speaking with you this today. So thank you everyone for tuning in to Unsung Heroes, the celebration of Matthew Bradley. And thank you very much, Annie, for joining me today on this very special interview. Thank you, everyone. Be safe.
Every life touched by organ and tissue donation crosses a bridge between death and life, grief and meaning, hope and healing. At only 48, Matthew Bradley, loving husband, father, brother, son, and dear friend to so many, died tragically. However, his gift of life transcends his time with us and has saved dozens of lives and will improve the well-being of scores of others. You see, Matthew Bradley was an organ and tissue donor. Tragically, 19 people die every day in this country waiting for an organ donation. Advances in medicine have made it possible to save tens of thousands of lives a year through donations like those of Matthew. A living gift like that of Matt's can be your legacy. Say yes to organ and tissue donation. Go to Donate Life America at donatelife.net and give the gift of life, just like Matt.